Hey all, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a fresh episode of Hard Talks where I'll be speaking with my friend Joel on his learning disabilities while growing up, his entrepreneurial spirit, mindset, forming partnerships, and also dealing with partnership fallout. This is probably the longest video I've made, so I have added into the description the chapters for relevant portions. On a side note, because we were filming this outdoors at Joe's patio, there might be some exterior noises that can be heard, but they're not really intrusive. So yeah, that's about it. Let's roll the footage.
So
How have you been, man?
good. Been busy.
Busy with what?
Working on a startup. Most of my time is spent on that. It's taking uh, quite a bit of basically it's not. I mean, I should know this better, but it's not as easy or smooth as I thought. Or I know. So just really dedicating a bunch of time
So
to
like,
kind of live and breathe it.
it's not like a typical 9 to 5, right? You're working pretty much
No.
anytime you need to work.
Yeah. Mostly, yes, I'll put it that way. I don't really have the 9 to 5 concept ingrained with me to begin with, so that's kind of advantageous. I think for the longest time, being a serial entrepreneur and everything. So, but yeah, making it work.
Right. So we are here today at your beautiful house.
Thank you.
It's the first time I'm filming outdoors actually, and natural sunlight. I'm surprised I didn't even need any of my artificial lighting to come into play. So, we're here today to kind of go through your childhood. You had some learning disabilities you mentioned before.
Yeah.
And your entrepreneurship. You actually started a few businesses, and you're now sort of like another co-founder. So it's like 2.0 for you.
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
let's just bring it back a bit and start from the beginning. Like, can you describe the family dynamics, when you were growing up?
Ooh. I think just to simplify it, I'm a single child, raised by a military dad, and how would I put it, very loving mother. Uh, Never really got the whole pampered single child, got whatever I want thing, obviously, because of the military dad. Dynamics wise, I think dad has always been the regimental, disciplinarian father figure. Obviously, I do something wrong, he's the one that deals out a punishment. Mom is probably just always there to try to moderate the situation, or at times give her input that may or may not affect
So it's the good
the
cop, bad
outcome.
cop thing.
I guess with good cop, bad cop thing going. Grew up in a industrial neighborhood. Seen a lot of
What do you mean industrial neighborhood? Where was this?
it was this place called Teban Gardens. It's kind of in beside a reservoir, a Pandan Reservoir, and along it there's quite a bit of heavy industrial factory, flatter factories and plants of sorts. As well, there's a painting chemical plant over there. So yeah, I guess it wasn't the rosy neighborhood that everyone would want to grow up in, but it was fun. Seen a lot of things. But more to family dynamics, I guess I always thought I would want a sibling. Only child was also.
Does that still stay true today, or like right now?
No, I guess I found my siblings not by blood in the form of friends and other meaningful relationships that I make out there. But yeah, I think that's about it. Not much to say about mom and dad.
So childhood was pretty smooth, no traumatic events, anything.
On the contrary, I wouldn't say traumatic events, but there is a bit of. I didn't really had a close relationship. Again, this is in retro as compared, or at least compared to the other friends that I see they have with their parents. I didn't really have a really good close relationship. If anything, it's a better working relationship just because we live together in the same house. Um, we function like a normal family. I guess the only more exciting part is obviously my adolescent or juvenile delinquent days.
All right, let's move into that straight away. All right, so juvenile delinquent days as in like primary school, secondary school?
Yeah, I guess I have always been labeled as a troublemaker.
What kind of trouble were you causing then?
To me, it wasn't trouble, but I think that to the rest of the world, it was trouble.
It was a school thing? Or?
School thing. Primary school, I went into, or at least not I went into, my mom was quite hell-bent in getting me into a, one of those Christian affiliated or SEP schools, they call it, so on the Bukit Timah stretch.
Is she a tiger mom?
Come again?
Is she a tiger mom?
No, not by a long shot. With much love, I say this, she's a little bit more of a ditzy mom that does what she can or what she thinks that is good for me, and she does it in her way. From giving me weird supplements to drink and finding weird activities for me to do.
Do you think any of that helped?
No, not at all. But I guess it kept me busy for a bit. I guess that was the very classic attempt to keep the kid busy so he doesn't act out.
You're closer to your dad or your mom?
I would say equal standing. I guess I communicate more with my dad, but that doesn't really bring or elevate that relationship more than with my mom. I think with my mom it's a little bit more warm, that he can be a little bit rigid and doesn't really show emotions much. He came from that era that, very man should be like this, can't shed a tear. Not to the extent of toxic masculinity, but he has that position to upkeep, or that he tries to. I guess part of that is also like I didn't know a lot about his past until way later. So the relationship really only started to blossom at a much later stage. I think they were too busy or caught up trying to bring me up. So I think a lot of that was lost. So again, maybe their priority wasn't really to form a relationship with me, but it was more of like just to make sure I get by. Yeah.
So you mentioned troublemaking in school.
Yes.
Well, aside from the shenanigans,
yeah,
how was like education, the actual education, like during primary and secondary school?
So I think primary school was a blur to me. What I mean is, I almost had no association that primary school equals to education. I just showed up. I just had a ball of, like, have as much fun as I can, and then go back home and eat, sleep, repeat. I had no sense of accomplishment, no sense of, like, I'm there to be educated or to achieve something or get something out of it. I was just passing each day at a time. I guess also because I just tune out in that sense. And also, I guess that kind of adds on to why it's so blurry for me, because there was no real effort made. The only core memories that were made were just memories and incidents of, certain stupid things that I do, or at least they coined stupid. Well, I think it wasn't very stupid, but it was interesting. But yeah, education just wasn't working out for me back then, especially with, I guess either I wasn't receiving it well, or they weren't just teaching it the right way. But that was how I guess kind of screwed up my grades.
You mentioned you had some difficulties, right? Like I remember once, like we were having drinks, and then we were reminiscing about the old days, and you said you actually had learning disabilities during those formative years.
Yeah.
So if I'm not correctly, you had dyslexia
Dyslexia, yeah.
and perhaps some ADHD influences. How difficult was it, compared to your normal peers? Do you feel like you were inferior in that sense, or?
So it's so maybe to answer the direct question first is no, which brings me why is because the early phase was a blur. This was only in retrospect that I identified or I suspected that I had learning disability. So I never knew this concept when I was young. And with my, I guess, short attention span, I would have never even opened it up for inquiry.
Yeah, especially back then, like these kind of learning
like I said, I just
difficulties, even the teachers, the education system, they're not aware of it. They didn't really cater for it.
I was actually pretty cool with accepting that I was a stupid kid in class. It never really.
Did the teachers ever call you stupid?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah. I mean, even in primary school, I have a little black book. I was apparently notorious, and they had to, almost as though it's like a penalty book. Every time I did something wrong or crossed the line, they will write it in the book, and I would have to go back daily to let my parents sign to notify them that I've done this. And yeah, that was I guess that was their way of dealing with it. But that part has nothing to do with the education. But again, the education part was, to me, I wasn't affected. It was a blur. I just wanted to pass each day. Teacher said that I was stupid. I just accepted it. It never really, it kind of fell on deaf ears. But I guess it was a combo because I was stupid and also naughty at the same time. So I was a handful. And to be fair, no teacher wants to deal with a kid that's a handful. Got slightly better after primary school because I guess it wasn't because of a maturity thing, but I guess I started to pick up a bit more cues of what I should and should not be doing. Again, I don't know whether it was the right thing, but I guess I matured in my own way. But still falling short of grades and getting, I guess, similar comments from teachers. Yeah.
So you still managed to kind of go through the, I'll call it typical Singapore education pathway.
Yeah.
Pretty much unscathed, like primary, secondary school, and then you went to
pretty much
poly.
Yeah, unscathed. Yeah, I guess I'll put it that way. Yeah.
So what did you study in poly actually?
So I took aeronautical engineering.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, what made you choose that?
So there's a story behind that also. So again, part of the maturity process was me actually trying to study for N-levels and O-levels. So I was in Express, and then after they kind of knocked me down. So basically, I just failed. I got rate for everything. And so they didn't really give me a choice. So either I go down to normal CAT or I have to be expelled. So that was the only two choices. So normal CAT would be 5 years. So I just thought, okay, yeah, sure, 5 years. And so I had to one more year, basically. So I tried to study for N-levels. And then I guess that maturity that I don't really know how to quantify or describe it. There's a longer backstory to that, but I don't want to go into it. But it kind of made me realize that studying is okay, and I probably had to just do it in a way where I understand. So N-levels kind of worked out. I actually scored pretty well. So I tried to do the same thing for O-levels because that was the real crunch time, right? That's kind of determine where you go, JC, Poly, and what kind of courses there's privy to you. So I did the same thing for that, and I did okay. So with the okay score, I went back home. I looked at the Poly courses. So obviously, as a kid again, with my best interest in mind, I just said, I want to do something that I think is cool or what I like. So actually, my first choice was interior design.
Interior design.
It was interior design.
So you wanted to set up a renovation?
I didn't think that far, but all I thought of was I knew I had a knack for building, I guess I was drawn to some form of engineering. And I think I was actually also inspired by my grades and passion in secondary school, because there was this module called Design and Technology. And I did, funny enough, compared to the rest of the other subjects, I did extremely well. In fact, my I can't remember the O levels or N levels, I topped the cohort and zone in the nation.
Wow, that's quite an achievement.
Correct, but you see, I didn't know that was an achievement back then. I was like, cool beans, bro. What do I get to build next? So I always had that passion of building. I like to do things with my hands. So I just thought ID brought that certain, and of course, on top of that, I always thought that I had some taste that could be capitalized in some. I felt that I would know what's nice and not nice. So couple that with my, I guess, growing or very infant engineering capabilities, I thought if I put it together, interior design would kind of be my wheelhouse, and then of course I just chose a few other, I can't really remember, more generic or more exciting ones. I think at that point of time, life sciences was coming up back then. I think I did apply. I think there was 6 choices that I was supposed to put, and never would I have thought that I would go aeronautical engineering. So again, if you're familiar, you get to choose by the grade. You get to choose and prioritize by what grades you have. So obviously, the higher grades you have, the easier you're going to get enrolled into the course. So, but I didn't really look at it that way. Again, like say blur. I just wanted to do what I want. So I structured it that way. And Dad, on the other hand, military, he was a more iron rice bowl, stable mentality kind of guy. He said that engineering is the way to go. He was a technician and slash engineer by trade in the military. So he encouraged me strongly to forego all the rest of my what would seem frivolous ventures into school and take up engineering instead. And I guess there was a part of me that didn't want to disappoint, but there was also a part of me that see the logic that he was trying to share. So, and I kind of knew that it wasn't the end all, tertiary education, or at least poly at that point of time, a diploma was merely a stepping stone. So I just thought, what the heck, working with aeroplanes sounds cool enough.
Did you do well?
Not in the beginning, but subsequently, again, I have my learning disability story. No, this is not a learning disability story. I always have this up and down journey throughout my life. I didn't do well, I do very well later. Enter new phase, I didn't do well, I do very well. So the common theme is that I apparently have some form of learning curve for things that I need to get used to. But eventually I did pretty okay. I think my highest GPA that I scored out of 4 at that point of time for a stupid kid was like 3.8 or 3.9.
No, stupid kid scored it.
In the beginning, when I didn't really care, I was scoring like 1 point something or 2 point something in the first sem or sorts.
So
yeah.
After poly with the aeronautical engineering diploma, like what was the next path that you took?
Yeah, so this one was where I think I made some conscious choices. Again, to the maturity thing, I think I matured a little bit more again, or at least had a better grasp of life. I made a decision there and then saying that engineering is not my thing. I did well, but I don't think that's a good reflection of whether I should pursue it as a career. So, and also because if I'm going to do further studies, which I guess I was just also following the bandwagon, right? Everybody, in Singapore is kind of expected to ride it out all the way to university. And I knew that if I were to continue either in a local university, I would have to take the affiliated course, which is engineering. I can't escape it. And apparently, if I wanted to switch, let's say to business or some other stuff, I had to score a perfect GPA or something like that. I can't remember the details, but so then I just thought, okay, since engineering is not my thing, and I think that was also the time where private uni started to get a little bit more popular, especially for the kids that can't get into the local uni. They had a choice of, I think SIM was the vehicle of choice for someone that post-diploma, they want to fulfill their university requirements. So I took that path.
What did you study in?
I thought that because I didn't really know what I want to pursue in, but everything in life kind of cuts us across the business spectrum due to our capitalistic world, I just thought, let's just take business. And there was a course available. I literally just went through what's the cheapest, what's the quickest. If it's just going to get me a paper at the end of the day, I may or may not learn anything from it. Just want to follow the motion. Like, hey, Dad, I need 24 grand. I want to pursue this. Get over and done with it. Yeah, that was kind of so I took business. I just thought it was more fitting. And to my surprise, I again had that up and down learning curve again. How they want to teach, like obviously now I'm saying as a business practitioner for almost the past 20 years, looking back at what they taught in business school, it's very different. Yeah, what they taught was actually priming people to enter the more corporate or enterprise level kind of business. Less of teaching them the landscape, but more of, I guess, I don't know what's the best way to put it. Teaching them very superficial stuff so that they can get by at work. I guess, I don't know how to frame it, but
you mentioned that the SIM degree is in the end it's more like just a piece of paper to you, but
yeah,
at the end, do you think the education itself at SIM prepared you for the entrepreneurship mindset that you had after you graduated? Was there any benefits from that, or?
Sorry, SIM, but no. There was, I think, a module where I can't remember whether he was a visiting lecturer or something. I don't know whether it was a module. I don't think it was a module. Maybe it was a session of entrepreneurship. There were some insights. So think about it this way. I feel that school just teach you a lot of tips and tricks. On one hand, again, I oversimplify it. But which is, I think, as they should, again, because I don't think they can really go deep down. And I'm sure there's entrepreneurial institutions or I think maybe that's why actually people find a lot of mentors that's been there, done that. I think those journeys are, you get some sage wisdom and you get actual firsthand experience, kind of stories to, kind of teaching moments, basically. I don't think you ever get that in school. I think school is really like, say, principles, tips and tricks, structure, lay of the land. But that's about it. So, but it gave me the reason, or it gave me the push to understand that I have to give it a shot, or I have to look for other resources in order to furnish the knowledge that with me with the knowledge that I need to know to be an entrepreneur, I guess. But a lot of them was kind of on the go too, right? I have to, break some eggs. Yeah.
So after you graduated, like, did you actually seek a salaried job, or did you already have ideas and like you wanted to create something of your own, that kind of thing?
So this again, I guess I use the excuse that's still part of the blur. After graduation, I did not have a salary job. I think the closest thing that, again, I can't remember how I was inspired. I can't remember how the actual events transpired and what made me or what pushed me to do what I did. All I know is in the tail end of my degree, I found an internship at. I was lucky enough that I had a grand uncle that ran and operated a SME in Singapore. So I thought my version of internship compared to the people wanting to go to the banks or I don't know, FMCG, at that point it was quite popular, was for me to be attached or to a practitioner that actually has built a $1 million business from scratch. So I just went up to him. I gave him a call, I was like, hey, uncle, kind of finishing up my school. I was hoping to get an internship. I think I can value add, I have some skills, kind of know what he was doing and what he was selling / distributing. So I just proposed to him and he was like, yeah, sure, come on board. And yeah, so I did that. I think during that time, so I guess that was the only salary, I guess, non-part-time basis, because I did a lot of but funny enough, ever since I am able to work since 16, and as I was still, messing around with, just trying to sell shit or just trying to figure things out, I did a lot of part-time jobs. Like, I tried to do as many different part-time jobs as possible. So I guess that was where I got my wider perspective with different industries, like really random jobs. I did jobs as a telemarketer. I did jobs as a logistics packer. I did jobs as a pizza delivery rider. Customer service officer.
So you're quite the journeyman then.
I just wanted to, that experience, work in a restaurant, hot side, cold side, wait side, runner, like I guess whatever that was available, events, banquet. So I guess that was, just an extension of the question of the job journey. I did get quite a lot. I interacted with quite a lot of people in that part, right? Then I guess the sit down desk job was, I guess, this internship. I had a small internship once in Poly, but that was more of like not very, very impactful. I was in a factory line kind of thing. But this internship was a little bit more impactful because it was the first time I was sat behind a desk. It was my first look and feel of what, I guess,
a desk job
or a job looked like. Like, shit, this is the real world. I have a reclining chair of sorts. I have a, one of those chairs. I had a desk. I had a screen, and I had a setup basically, right? Which compared to me now, it's I never take any. I have a small working desk, but it's not much. But anyway, it was my first experience. So the internship was a bit two-sided because on one hand, I enjoyed because I actually tried to use what I've learned in school back then to help my uncle's business, which was not really the profile of not the JD of the intern, but that was my first. I guess a lot of people won't do that, but that was my first thought of, hey, I know this. I saw a gap. Abo, I do this for you. Which also he had some things that he wanted me to do that I guess in just for labeling sake, it was more menial tasks, like maybe data entry or preparing some documentation, which was fine because, like I said, I was learning. But yeah, that was my, going back to the question, that was my only salary job for, I think, a good 6 months. But it was also then that I officially incorporated alone my, I guess, my first private limited, my first business,
What was
just
it
alone.
about? What was it about? What?
So I guess back in the day, like me and my friends, we were just also trying to experiment what to do, because they also had some business influence, because either their parents ran a small SME, or they had relatives that ran small businesses, small medium businesses. So I guess also they were inspired. So as we were messing around, there was a trend that I think about maybe almost 10, 15, I can't remember, but let's just say arbitrary number, 10 years ago, there was a movement of the barber movement, where slick hair, those grease lightning kind of hairstyles became popular again, undercuts. And with that rising trend, people had to use different styling products. So Gatsby has been the dominant player for all, our generation and even beyond, right? They have been a styling product of choice, the incumbents. But in order to achieve those hairstyles, they had to make do. They don't have the exact product, which is what they call pomade. And people are trying to make do with gel. But gel is something that will harden. It still gives you that very slick and wet look, but it actually hardens. But pomade actually is quite workable. It's quite malleable. It means you can comb through any time.
So you were selling hair products?
I was, so we decided to distribute that pomade hair products. And so that was with my friends. And then it didn't kind of work out. I saw some leaks, but it didn't really work out. But I saw opportunity in a different way. I kind of proposed to them, and they were like, I think they were busy and everything. So I just took it and ran with it. I kind of took a bit of the experience as where we went around with, talked to different barbers and salons and kind of understand the situation. So we weren't really equipped with the products that they really want, even though pomade was just one of them, but they're actually a wide range. So I just kind of went out to find it myself. I spoke to friends that, I think the easiest was I spoke to friends that have lived or worked overseas before. At that point of time, was more study overseas. Asked them about styling products that they use, what they value. Then I went for conventions. I started to, be on the lookout for products that I could eventually bring in. So yeah, that was how it started. And again, when I was doing my internship, it was then that I actually decided. I think that was my first sign of. So I guess in business, again, it might be very different for other entrepreneurs. There's this word called leverage that you always want. You want to leverage every single opportunity. And at that point of time, my uncle had a warehouse. So the leverage opportunity is that I can bring in and store goods without really having to pay for rent. So yeah, that was my first, I guess that was a driver that made me, I think that was we had the courage, along with my girlfriend at that point, Rachel. She encouraged me to take that bold leap, that bold step to just start it alone. If nobody wants to do it with you, it's okay. With her support too, because she was actually we put in money together to actually start the business.
But you didn't just sell hair products, right? Like
in the beginning, I just did sell hair.
Yeah, but as in like after that, it became a salon.
Yeah.
Business, because I remember going. Is it that same warehouse you're talking about?
No, it was
it's a different one.
It was a different one.
Okay. Yeah. I remember you invited us down to your hair salon thing.
Yeah.
So how did that transition go, like from hair products to like, oh, I want to open a hair salon as well?
Yeah.
The business. And I think it was a bespoke kind of thing as well, right?
Yeah. How do I so I was in the industry, right? I was around, my customers were beauty salons, hair salons. and I guess I entered their world because I was a supplier, right? Just supplying them products that they need because they're the actual professionals that actually understand more about the product and how they recommend it to customers. I'm in some sense merely a middleman. So I went into their world and started to learn more. So again, right, I started to try to find gaps that I can value add. So I guess after distributing for a while, right? I can't remember when was I think it was somewhere in 2019, pre-COVID, just pre-COVID. I met I would say up and coming, but he's already been there and done that, hairdresser or stylist, which soon after became my business partner in the salon, which was actually the exact thing was a co-working beauty space. So I guess I found a friend or a potential person that I can work with to really work on new ideas that I have that I think could potentially solve, or not solve, but supplement a very traditional or old business. So I found him and I kind of sounded, the idea to him and saying that, hey, with co-working spaces kind of being very popular, I think WeWork had that boom and everyone was jumping onto it, shared resources. It was kind of a no-brainer, right? Then I kind of realized that, hey, actually, if you have shared resources in a beauty salon context, it will be more impactful because the equipment that beauty people use are way more expensive. And the location that they're at, the rental is way higher. So, I connected the dots that other than just sharing a desk or a printer or reception, which is what a co-working space provide, which is actually a very low cost, I actually bring more value because a lot of things like the perm machine, the washing basin, all those bigger equipments, it actually costs way more. And the barrier of entry to get them is way higher for a young and budding stylist that wants to go out and do something him or herself. So we created that space to actually, in some sense, welcome freelancers or people that are working as freelancers and want to eventually open their own salon one day. This is a place that we, can kind of house them, let them do what they want to do.
This is quite interesting. So it's like a open collective where
it's an open collective where the trade, the core business is almost like I rent you a chair model. And the reason why we did that is because the current setup for most salons is that if a freelancer go and works at the salons that they choose, the salon owner charges them a large, hefty commission. It was, I think, if I'm not wrong, 50%. So that means if they earn $10, $5 would go to them, to the salon owners, which I felt was a little bit unfair, at that point. So I didn't really. Again, I sympathize on one angle, but I also didn't really think the price was justifiable. So with this whole co-working concept, we managed to lower the commissions to a point we calculated where we can keep the place running with everyone pulling their weight, and they take home the lion's share, which is maybe 80% or more of the commissions, and we just take a small cut to keep the place running. So that was that as the business model. And then to supplement that, we have quite a few experienced ex-salon owners, and my business partner, Xavier himself, he used to, hail from a top salon chain in Singapore. And he came in and kind of consulted and gave his, again, like some mentorship kind of way to talk to these young aspiring freelancers. And we actually helped a few of them set up their own shops eventually. Yeah. So that was kind of the whole concept. It was convenient for us. And I guess I also wanted something cool, it wasn't done before. It was Singapore first. So
yeah, definitely an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But so how long did this business last?
It went on for 4 years.
What made you decide that you wanted to pull the plug on it after 4 years?
So we set it up, then COVID came. We rode out COVID. It wasn't as smooth, but we actually made it work. It was quite a bit of work we had to make up, with the loss of, nobody's going out, nobody needs a haircut, nobody needs to use hair products. So it's all interlinked.
I didn't get a haircut. Exactly.
Right? I even left a man bun.
I did too, man.
Exactly. Right? So we figured out how to sustain, but let's just say we wanted to strike when the iron is hot, but then the iron suddenly turned cold. And then we had to keep ourselves busy to try to make it work to a point where the idea wasn't as sexy anymore. And by the time we, I guess, got some stability, it didn't seem as though as it was a very scalable. We had some investors came and talked to us, say that they liked the concept and wanted to bring us to other countries to scale. But I guess my perspective changed 4 years later from the inception of it. I guess some were to do with personal reasons. And I guess the bulk of it was also just making an executive decision with Xavier, saying that I think we will probably earn better money if we put our efforts in something else. So it was then after that, we decided to take this concept, but not sell it that way, but open a large salon that actually runs this concept in the background, but we don't actually market it out there. So we eventually opened up. The business kind of transited, the idea kind of transited to us just opening a normal conventional salon that was bigger, that could house different beauty artists. So we added like eyebrows, eyelash, to kind of complement the whole hair trinity kind of way.
Is that still going on, or?
So no, there was a partnership fallout, unfortunately, and then we all had to part ways.
What's a partnership fallout like, actually? Because we always hear these doom stories like, oh, fallout, and then you guys, people don't talk to one another anymore.
Yeah.
You don't want to associate with one another. But how was it actually like?
I never really had to summarize it before. I think it comes to a point. The easy way that people think about it is when people can't see eye to eye. That may be the spark for a partnership fallout. But if you have a good working relationship, that doesn't mean anything. So it was more of where people's prides and egos come in and they refuse to budge, whether you call it compromise or being open-minded. So I know I'm giving a quite PC answer, but again, if I were to really...
It is very PC, something that I do not expect out of you.
No, because I don't want to make it sound like all partnership fallouts are ugly. Most of them are.
But yours, no. Okay.
It was quite, I guess, not the worst that I've seen, but again, back to, I think those guidelines that I was saying is not due to disagreement, but most of the time it's where pride and ego gets in the way. Compromise doesn't become a tool that you can use anymore, and people become very narrow-minded. That's where I think it all crumbles.
Are you guys still on talking terms?
So there are more, this time because the salon was bigger, there were more involved.
Okay.
So me and Xavier, we're always on talking terms. I think me and Xavier, sometimes, so I have my own partnership fallouts. Xavier has his own partnership fallouts prior to even when we got together. And I don't know how to emphasize this. Finding a business partner is really just as difficult. A good business partner is really just as difficult as finding a life partner. Yeah. Or, yeah, I mean, I don't want to compare it that way, but I've been through so many working relationships with people, and I don't really think that I can say I can work with this fella. Sorry, let me rephrase that. I think there's a certain magic when you find the right business partner. It's like, as cliche as it sounds, you know what each other is thinking, and you will make the same decisions, and you would trust wholeheartedly on every single decision that that fellow will make on your behalf. I think to me, maybe my bar is quite high, right? But I'm not saying that, it has to be that then you become my business partner. But I'm saying that I have found that having a great business partner allows you to take it to that extent where the working relationship is just so fantastic that you're just happy and work is really fun. Whereas there is a chance where if you don't find somebody that suits you, you might lead into that. That's what we mentioned, where people let their personal agendas or, I guess, subjective way of thinking ruin the relationship, and then the business is kind of at the expense.
Then from there, you made a U-turn and became a salaried worker. Well, that's how I met you.
No. So that's the part. So this place, the co-working beauty space, it's called Hideout. So just that we can break. Hideout was running when I met you. So I actually left it in his good hand to continue what I guess the work that we set out to do. So basically we struggled through COVID. After we struggled through COVID, I said that, hey, you know what? I need to start thinking a little bit bigger. And because that was my first foray into. So all this while with beauty and salons and everything, I was really in the realm of traditional business. So this was actually my really first foray into something, a scalable business. So at that point in time, I was also interested in tech, right? And obviously that's where we meet in a tech working environment. So I actually was privileged enough to have the opportunity to learn more about tech there. If I'm not wrong, it was maybe 2 years in, then I invited you guys because it was closing down. And that was the point where it closed. So it was happening concurrently.
So you were a salaried worker and also...
But at the point in time, I was very off hands from operation. But yes, I was a salary worker from, I guess, I can't remember, was it 2020?
And the salary worker part at that point in time was basically kind of your main thing because, as you said, you were hands-off from...
I hands-off. I really wanted to immerse myself with the world that again, with anything that I do, and because this one was also of interest because as a founder, I thought, I kind of reached a saturation point already. I don't know why I don't know. And it's not as though I'm always surrounded by great mentors. It's hard to find. So I just thought I needed to go back to school. So I guess my version of going back to school was going out into an industry that you want to learn more, embed yourself there, learn as much as experience, which is kind of the opposite of what people do when they graduate, and they kind of do that first before they even think about having their own business. But yes, the salary job was actually school for me. Yeah. And I don't know whether you remember when I went in at that point, like to me, all of you guys, even though I may be, I guess, compared to some older, but you guys were like all my seniors because I have zero corporate experience of sorts.
But you enjoyed it. Did you?
There was a struggle in the early days, I must admit, because I didn't know, I wasn't exposed to what do you call this working environment. I always had a very small team, right? Like 5 tops. But now the dynamics kind of changed. It was interesting because I start to really see what politics meant, what wayanging, meant, what one kind of people meant. I mean, again, we are very privileged. This is just not a disclaimer, but just to put it out there. The environment that we worked in really was really great. And thank God I didn't have to deal with maybe the environments that you guys grew up with your early working years that I think a lot of our former colleagues also had to. So this is a privileged talk. But I am aware, right? But it was a nice glimpse of what I missed out while I was on my entrepreneur journey. Yeah. So,
did your impression of being a salaried worker improve? I mean, obviously,
it was never bad in the first place. So there was no improvement. I just never had. I guess I just never had the privilege to be a salary worker, if I put it that way, because it does come with its perks. It did change my not my impression. It did. I don't know what's the right word to use, but there was a change. So it was more of, as an entrepreneur, I really had to think about every single thing, and especially when it comes to dollars and cents, right? And it worked quite differently. I had to make sure everyone else is paid first before I'm paid, right? I had to structure things in a way where it has to be optimized, it has to be cost efficient. So a lot of that thinking, again, some people live for that, but it took a toll on me. So when I became a salaryman, I was like, fuck, I didn't have to think of anything at all. I was like, so literally, and I forgot that it was that simple. I just had to look up to the manager or whoever your line manager is, like, tell me what to do. Again, it's not that simple, but I'm just oversimplifying it. It's like, he or she just points, and I shoot. There was really, that was it. Like, it was so, kind of reminded me of army, but obviously, oversimplifying it, there is a lot of initiative that one would have to do in your job role, but it was really that. And regardless of what happens, in some sense, I mean, as long as you're not a underperformer or anything, every month on this particular day, the same amount of money comes to your bank, and you will not even think twice. So it was a very almost refreshing or a feeling that I wasn't very used to, because I guess as an entrepreneur, I had a very variable salary. But also behind that variable salary, I had a lot of other things to think of and pay, or to make sure that it kind of works out before I sit down and take a back seat and say that, hey, now it's good. Like, we can how do I say it? Sorry, I got distracted by the
no, it's okay.
The van. But yeah, all in all is that I had to think a lot before that final dollar comes into my bank when I was an entrepreneur. But this feeling was very different. I didn't have to think at all in some sense, and money came to the bank. I know it might sound weird that many people might not understand what I'm saying, but yeah, it was a relatively comforting experience, I would dare say. Yeah.
So obviously, we're all not salaried workers anymore.
I guess, yes. Yeah.
And you are now a co-founder.
Yes. Again,
like entrepreneurship path 2.0 kind of thing.
I never learned my lesson, do I?
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
I know. I always make
good thing, right?
I make it sound that way just because.
Well, what was changed this time? So, you went from the earlier days, I would just put it as 1.0. You became a salary worker, and then now it's 2.0. So, has anything changed, like mindset or like your views on things?
A lot.
So, what might those mindset changes be like?
Well, I don't know where to begin for this one. Definitely a lot. I think 2.0, in a nutshell, was applying whatever that I've learned as a salaried person in the past almost 3 years, in VC, CVC, in tech, and me actually applying it. Like, I think that is the biggest how would I put it, takeaway. So Founder 2.0 didn't come about because I wanted it. So I'm not saying I'm not grateful, but hear me out. So after we got laid off, right, I started to try to stay in the ecosystem. I helped run events. I attended, I guess, other activities, ecosystem activities that will basically keep me current. So part of that is meeting people, networking. I was still expanding my professional network. Sorry, go on. You think? Okay.
No, it's all good.
Okay. Yeah, so I was still in, I guess, in the progress of getting my stripes or my wings. I guess 3 years was good time for me to learn what I need to learn, but also I need to prove myself now. So as part of getting that stripes, I wanted to participate and give back in a way to the ecosystem. So I started to do my own small. So basically, in the previous life, I helped run an accelerator program where I speak with many startups and give them some resources and guidance. So I just thought, if I can't do that through a official company, right, then I can do it kind of like freelance. So as an advisory role. So part of that is just me going out, and if I see a startup that I deem that they are at an early stage where they could use certain advice, especially tech co-founders where they don't necessarily have this good business acumen or have that edge to really bring their product to a commercial level. I thought that was where kind of my forte is, having some entrepreneurship experience and having the tech experience to see how it can both come together. So that goes back to my point. I wanted to be applied, and that was where I started speaking to different startups and started advising. And then one startup I particularly grew fonder of, especially also, like I said, partners, right? From what I was mentioning earlier, it's hard to find good partners. And there was an affinity with this guy. His name is Bura, which is my tech co-founder. Yeah, he just had that aura and we kind of hit it off. So I just started advising for, I guess,
Probably like a love at first sight.
it wasn't love. I guess there was something that brought us together. It was kind of, maybe I wouldn't say love at first sight, but it was affinity. I use the word affinity. I always, when I had to recount this story, it was serendipitous. I wasn't looking at all to do a startup. Then I met him, so I just started advising. So I was, still having a distant relationship with him. So it went on for 3 months. I put him through my accelerator program of sorts. And then I think it was effective in some sense. I guess I contributed enough for him to kind of just one day pop the question. The proposal was, hey, do you want to play a bigger part in this? And yeah, I guess that was how our love story began.
Just enlighten us on this startup that you're a co-founder of.
Yeah.
What exactly does it actually do? What does the company do?
Yeah, so we are trying to develop a QA platform, quality assurance platform that provides that gives a end-to-end. Sorry, let me repeat that again. See, there I go screwing up my elevator pitch. We're developing a end-to-end QA platform And on top of that, we are offering low code and no code test automation. So again, these are a bit more technical, but effectively, there's an industry called quality assurance, and there are a bunch of people behind it. We're just creating tools for them to make their lives easier. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess a question just popped in my head is, do you think anyone can be an entrepreneur, or some people maybe they just should not approach entrepreneurship?
I don't think there is a line where I will work it the other way around. I don't think there is a sentence. No, this sentence shouldn't be said to anyone that no one should avoid entrepreneurship. But again, I wouldn't say entrepreneurship is for everybody. But I will go as far as saying that everyone is allowed to try their hand at entrepreneurship. Even if you don't end up doing it, it's a great experience. But maybe what the answer you're looking for is, if you know yourself, so again, entrepreneurship means multiple hats, means you have to be a generalist, means you have to do things that even if you don't like to do, it comes with that responsibility. And if by nature you don't think that is your cup of tea, then it's going to be, I would say, a hectic journey. Again, I wouldn't say that because of that, then you can't do, but you got to know yourself that if you're a person that likes routine, if you're a person that doesn't want to involve yourself with things, like as long as within your remit, you want to involve in everything outside, don't, it's going to be a bit tricky. It doesn't stop. I agree. Maybe one would learn how to fall in love with that. Maybe that first step is actually even uncovering that, hey, I actually don't like routine. Hey, I actually think that I'm great, right? But there's many different kinds of entrepreneurship. And maybe back to how I met my tech co-founder. So there's a reason why we call it the tech co-founder, business co-founder, because it's a model that it's proven that it's used in a startup world. Very rarely do you have one person that can do everything in a company. And so they have distilled to a point where the best match is if you can find a technical person. Again, I say this specific to the tech industry. If you have a tech person and a business person and you bring them together, that's where the partnership forms. So they can kind of cover the domain or expertise in the certain field that they are bringing, right? So the business will probably think about a little bit more expansion, go to market, commercialization. Tech person will do a little bit more product, do a little bit of building the initial MVP. So that combination works. Again, they may or may not intrinsically have entrepreneurial traits, but sometimes you can find people or partner with people that, short of saying, do the things that you don't want to do. And that's where it's complementary. And that's where it goes back to my point of finding a great partner that knows you. So to reiterate, I would encourage everyone. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody, but I would encourage everyone to give it a shot, to see what's it all about. It's not much. Takes up the most a year of your life, or maybe you don't even have to do it full time, right? Part time, a side hustle we call it. If you're a side hustler, you're an entrepreneur already, by default. Yeah. So one advice, maybe just to add on, the only reason why I would encourage people that don't think that they want to be entrepreneurs or don't think that they can be entrepreneurs to give it a shot is because of the discovery journey that I guess I experienced in a different way. I never, since day one, thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to do what I want to do. And in some sense, it took the form that I have to be an entrepreneur. And then it just snowballed. I didn't set out to be, I want to be a business owner. I just wanted to do something different, and maybe one day led me to do something more inspiring or exciting. So that was kind of the early days, and then how it transpired to now.
Okay, I guess as a final message, and also, slightly related note to what you just mentioned, like, what's a message you want to send to people who, already have visions of being an entrepreneur, but have yet to take that first step? That they have a bit of fear, they are a bit hesitant. What would be your message to these people?
I think there is a reason why people are afraid. Without being too methodical, get a rough sense of where your fear stems from. Because sometimes it's irrational. Why I say this is, there could be a host of reasons, right? Maybe a fear of failure. It could be a fear of what people think of you. It could be maybe the fear of, if you do this, you're losing out in some sense. I don't know, maybe financially, or again, I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say, it could be try to understand where this is coming from. Because the easiest way that I can think of to jumpstart anyone's entrepreneurial journey is just to take action and not just sit and think about it. And one thing sometimes people like to do is also overthink about certain stuff. Like, when they have too many things that they haven't answered, they don't dare to go for it. So I think there was a famous saying, I can't remember where it came from, that I think it helped me deal with inaction, is that you don't have to know what is 3 steps ahead, 4 steps ahead, 5 steps ahead. Simple thing is, do you know what is the next step to take? If you know what is the next step to take, just do it. Everything else will fall in place, which means failure, success, recourse, whatever. If you know what's the next step, just take it. Don't worry about it. Most of the time, that is the way, from my experience, that stops people from really starting. It's that first step. Yeah. So fear, figure out what you're really afraid, try to rationalize it. If you can't, use the logic of what I said. Don't have to have it all thought through. Do you know the next steps? Yes, do it. Trust me, the ball will just keep rolling and rolling and rolling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Words of wisdom from Joe. And I guess thank you for doing this whole interview and sharing your experience, your journey, your ideas as well. And thank you for coming to the interview.